contest sponsored by Rolf and Purina. He won first prize. Let's see what he does when he gets a chance to
What do you want me to do?
He was coming at me. Wrong guy. Like a champion. Just so you know, in like 18 years of his performance, he's only landed on one other person in one of my audiences out of the tens of thousands. And when he landed on that poor little girl, he took the biggest dump on her head I've ever seen. It was pandemonium. She was reduced to tears. It was really heartbreaking, and he never did that again. So, by flapping his powerful wing muscles, using his pectorals, he's able to make flight happen. This bird has a powerful bill used for cracking shells. I'm giving him sunflower seeds. He can crack these quite easily. If I were to give him something larger like a walnut or any of those big, he can crack those as well. He's built for that. He's basically a vegetarian, and nuts are a primary thing that he likes to eat. Sometimes he does some interesting vocalizations like my telephone. What's that? That's my telephone. Sure. So when he was a young bird, he learned to mimic the sound of my phone, and he did this because it would make me come into the living room, which is where I kept his cage. He used to fool me into thinking that actually I had a phone call coming in. It was actually my parrot. Sometimes he'd pretend to be my answering machine, and you have to wait for the beep. And that other little noise that he made, one summer my daughter, she had these horrible allergies. Bless you. The parrot picked up the sound of the allergy, and he began doing that as well. He's a bit of a stinker. Are you a bit of a stinker? Truth be told, he's really quite horrible to live with. He's super noisy. We're going on nearly 2 decades now. He's going to live a lot longer. But in the meantime, he's actually pretty fun. I want to put him down. I want to switch. What'd you do? You pooped? Okay. I want to switch gears. The next bird I'm going to show you is considered the world's fastest living animal. So this is going to be really exciting for this little falcon. He does bird shows for me every day, but outdoor shows. So if we could be quiet, I think that'll help us feel a little more comfortable inside. Thanks so much. So we know the fastest animal on planet Earth with 4 legs is the cheetah, sprinting at roughly 70 miles an hour across the plains of Africa, chasing things like impala. You know, cheetah are fast because they really have to be. Things like impala, the things they catch and eat, they're fast. The reason an impala is fast, they need to escape from things like cheetahs and lions and leopards and hyenas. We can think of this as a bit of an arms race between predator and prey using speed to pursue or to not to be captured. So if we extrapolate this to the bird of prey kingdom, we can think of falcons as kind of like the cheetahs of the sky. Think of them as Ferraris, Lamborghinis, super fast. Falcons are built for high-speed bird pursuit. We're talking about speeds of roughly 80 to 100 miles an hour on a flat plain. Relatively fast. If these birds want to increase their rate of speed, if they want to go maximum velocity as fast as they can, they use the Force. I don't know if there's any Star Wars fans in the audience today. There often are. So the Force is real. There are many varieties of the Force. The Force that I want to highlight right now is an energy that most of us describe as gravity, pulling things towards the planet, including hunting falcons. We've seen a peregrine falcon reliably clocked at 242 miles per hour in a vertical dive. So in other words, they climb first, they use that vertical attack, and they can really increase their rate of speed. Falcons are projectiles. This bird was hatched in an aviary in Sheridan, Wyoming. At least I hit the paper this time. My first show, I missed the paper with one of my birds, which was really a disgrace for me. I hate missing the paper. Okay. Yeah, that's the one I missed, right? No, that's the sunflower seeds. Okay. Okay. We're gonna have to get past the poop. We gotta get past the poop. So this bird is a hybrid. He's a cross between two types. His father was a gerfalcon. These are Arctic birds, GYR. The gers are the biggest, the strongest, in horizontal flight, the fastest. The mother to this bird was a peregrine falcon. Peregrines, when I was a little boy, were endangered. Even though I picked up the craft of falconry as a child, and these peregrines were iconic falconry birds, our ancestors from places like the Far East and the Middle East and the Near East had been using falcons like peregrines for thousands of years. I never imagined one day to be working with peregrines or hybrids thereof because they were endangered. When I was a little boy, we were looking at potential extinction scenario. Bald eagle, brown pelican, osprey, peregrine falcon, all suffering the ravages of a chemical pesticide called DDT. DDT was something that we used on our farms to kill bugs so we could grow food and not feed bugs necessarily. DDT was a very effective killer of bugs. Unfortunately, it was causing eggshell thinning. Rather than losing our iconic bald eagle, in 1972, our federal government stepped in. They banned the use of DDT. And these birds have been recovering ever since, which is why we can see peregrine falcons routinely in some places. I was hunting with this falcon, and I do hunt with birds. I let them go, and they hunt and catch their own meals, kind of like their wild counterparts. A couple of days ago, this falcon was hunting in a wetlands area. Two peregrines, a young one and an old one, came in for a visit. I see peregrines routinely today, which is something I never saw when I was younger because they were very much, their populations have been depleted. We are full recovery. Bald eagles are everywhere they're supposed to be, pretty much, as can be said for peregrines and osprey. Where I work on the beach, brown pelicans are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. We banned the poison that was causing potential extinction, and the problem went away. I'm so glad we did that. I can't imagine living on a planet without those kinds of iconic birds. I want to switch gears. Are there any falcon-based questions before we move into a different category? And you can raise your hand now. Yes?
How old is that puppy?
He's 2 years old, very young, relatively speaking. Just to give you a sense, though, when a bird of prey hatches out of the egg, they're typically full-grown within about a 2-month time frame. And most birds of prey are on their own, autonomous, by about the age of roughly 3 months. So 2 years isn't like infantile, but he should have a lifespan somewhere in the 18, 19 years old if he lives to a ripe old age. He's very much a young bird, but he's very prime as well. Yes?
Why does he have to wear that mask?
Thank you for asking. So the hood will allow me to put him back under the table where he'll be not seen by the next bird we're going to get out. If I put him under the table without the hood on, he'll be really uncomfortable there. That won't feel like a safe place. When I need to transport my birds or stage them, if I eliminate visual stimulation, if I blindfold them, they become very relaxed typically. Very visual animals. Some Arab discovered thousands of years ago that by making artificial darkness, we can put a hawk or a falcon or an eagle in a very calm, think of it as suspended animation. Yes?
Why does he have the jingle bell?
So when I'm flying my birds, I can often hear them. I don't have to watch them necessarily to get a sense for where they are. And at home, the bells work like a baby monitor. I'll have different birds in different places, inside and outside. If everything is okay, I typically don't hear a lot of bell ringing. If I begin to hear a bell, it alerts me that maybe I need to go check and see what's going on. So it's kind of an early warning system for me. Yes?
Which one would be faster, this bird or a leopard?
Or who?
Leopard.
So a leopard would have a speed less than that of a cheetah, which we know maxes out at about 70 miles an hour. So just, again, the falcons, we're talking about roughly 80 up to about 100 miles an hour this way, and 200 miles an hour plus this way. So these falcons are very much faster than any land animal. Let's do one more before we switch gears. Yes? So falcons tend to be bird hunters. When you think falcon, think high-speed bird pursuit, and you won't be far from the evolutionary thrust of that version of bird of prey. Let me drop this guy. I'm going to grab a hawk. We're going to get this hawk flying. I'll need you to be quiet, and please don't raise your hands again until I ask you to. All right? So we've switched categories. We've left the realm of the falcon and we've gone into the world of the hawk. People often curious, they ask me the difference between hawks and falcons, and I often tell them the difference is about 100 miles an hour, which is meant to be a joke. But when you think falcon, think cheetah, Ferrari, Lamborghini. When you think hawk, think mammal pursuit. These birds aren't built to fly at those kinds of speeds.
That's amazing.
So one of the things I never do with falcons is fly them indoors. My falcons are very what we call heavily wing-loaded, which basically means they need to fly very fast and have a much wider turning radius. My hawks are a little bit different. So we see this hawk has a very long tail. We know that on an airplane or on a bird, the tail is the rudder. This is important for maneuverability. So in other words, my hawks can turn more quickly than my falcons. They can use that tail to brake more quickly than my falcons. And by virtue of wing design, my hawks can accelerate more quickly than my falcons for a short distance. Once my falcons get their rhythm going, develop momentum, they'll leave these birds behind. But these guys are relatively slick in their own right. So this Harris's hawk, her name is Alaka, so I call her my hawk Alaka. I use her for my work at the resort, and in my own world, I use her to help me. We go jackrabbit hunting together. She catches them. So jackrabbits run at about 40 miles an hour. She will handily outfly these, probably doing about 50 miles an hour. Once these rabbits realize they don't have enough speed to get away, they try dodging out of her way, and that's where the tail, where the agility really shines. She can outmaneuver jackrabbits in the desert. This is what these hawks were built to do. Harris hawks were a southwestern desert bird of prey. We used to have them in California, but they're gone. We lost them at about the late 1970s. These birds can still be found in places like Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, and south of the border. This particular bird was raised in an aviary in Louisiana. After a 3-month socialization with her family, she was flown to California, and we've been a pair ever since. She's a 6-year-old bird. She should live to be 30-something years old. I actually had one of these hawks for 20 years. He died prematurely after he developed a tumor, which is something I've never seen in any of my birds before. Friends of mine have had these into their 30s. Harris hawks on a global scale are entirely unique in that this is the only bird of prey on planet Earth that will hunt aggressively in pack formation. The way that a pack of wolves or a pride of lions or a pod of dolphins will hunt in family clans. Unheard of behavior in this kind of a realm, in the bird of prey world. We falconers appreciate this about them. They're naturally cooperative. It's in their DNA to be a team player. So when in falconry context, they're kind of go along, get along. Plus they like to catch things like rabbits, which guys like me sometimes like to watch happen. This bird, much larger than the male that I have. I have a male just like her. He's a little younger. He's a 2-year-old bird, but he's way smaller. He's not smaller because he's younger. He's smaller because he's a boy. We're used to the mammal kingdom. The male's typically larger, physically, stronger than females is common. In the bird of prey world, girls are often a third larger than their males for reasons that are unclear. What is clear, that old adage that you may have heard that if mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy. In the bird of prey context, if mama's not happy, somebody's in trouble. Males don't push their luck. Yes, dear, right away. They do what they're supposed to. They don't irritate their females because they can get into a world of hurt. If you have any questions about hawks, you can sure raise your hands now. Yes? Oh, we're having cottontail rabbit. We were cottontail rabbit hunting a couple days ago. This is an unlucky rabbit foot. Yes? So when I take my dog for a walk, and I work with English pointers, which are bird dogs, which were bred originally in Europe to hunt with falcons before guns had been invented. I use my pointers as originally intended. When I walk my dog, I have a collar around his neck and a leash that I can attach that I can make sure he doesn't go into the road. With my birds, I want to be able to control their movements as well. When I put her down on a perch, I don't want her to fly around the room anymore, and I can assure that won't happen because I have basically collared her legs, and I have a leash that's attached, so I'll be able to control her movements with the handle. Yes?
You mentioned that she eats jackrabbits. What else does she eat?
Everything. Yeah, Harris hawks are nothing if not what I call broad menu. Very technically, we would call them opportunistic in their predation. Everything's potentially a meal. They will hunt birds, they will hunt rabbits and squirrels, and just kind of everything, which is one of the things that is kind of attractive about these kinds of hawks for some kinds of people because they're very broad menued in that sort of way. But she excels at rabbit hunting because that's what she's built to do. Rabbits are a primary target in the desert. Yes?
It looks like the other bird's eyes were like wider, or like it looked like there were a difference in the bird's.
That's a great observation. Yeah, I would probably say you're right. The falcon we looked at probably has a larger eye for its size, and that may have something to do with the falcons being a longer range hunter. It may have something to do with the Arctic genetics in that bird. In the Arctic, darkness can be a more challenging aspect of a daytime hunting animal. But great observation. So before I put her down, I'm going to give her, you guys are going to freak out. Watch this bone. I think she's about ready to take a femur. So have you guys dissected owl pellets? Did you do that in school yet, or is that over? So for those of you who know about owl pellets, you know that owls have bones in their pellets so we can identify the animals. Yeah, we know that we can identify the animals that an owl eats based on the skeletal remains. In the daytime, in the diurnal bird of prey world, like the hawk and the eagle and the falcon, when they eat bone, they actually dissolve it. They have a very acidic stomach. So when she regurgitates a pellet like the owl does, that bone won't be there. Within several hours, within about 16 hours, that bone will have been dissolved. And the calcium will provide nutrition as well as the marrow on the inside. Yeah, here we go. We're all done. All done. So I'm going to grab another bird for you. It's going to come out of this big box.
Ow. Ow.
These people think it's an owl.
It is.
It may be, or it could be that I've switched birds and there's something else in there. But I will tell you his name is Albert. So, just to recap where we've been, falcon, high-speed bird pursuit. When you think hawk, think mammal hunting, and in some cases, great agility. When we talk about an owl, what I'd like you to remember in a word, if you remember nothing else, ambush. So we see ginormous orange eyes out of this Eurasian eagle owl. I'm 195 pounds, Albert weighs 4. I dwarf him, his eyes are bigger than mine. You and I have eyes built to see during the daytime. We call this diurnal vision. Owls have eyes that are built to see after sundown, nocturnal or night vision. We know that militarily we can operate after sundown wearing night vision technology. The idea being we don't need additional lighting, which might alert our enemy to our location. In other words, we see them through the dark, and if they don't have this technology, we enjoy invisibility, which in warfare is a giant tactical advantage. This is the realm of the owl during nighttime hours, when the owl is hunting a diurnal, a daytime creature. These guys enjoy invisibility. They're not easily seen. Unusually flat face. This is counterintuitive to aerodynamic performance. In other words, these owls aren't built to go super fast the way that my falcons are. This flat face is an excellent collector of sound waves. You and I have external ears that help us to hear. Albert's entire face does this function on a much more sophisticated plane. They can hear things much further out than you and I can. They can hear small sounds in close that you and I cannot. The digestion of a mouse, audible to an owl. Owls have super duper soft feathers, unlike those of my falcons who are hardened on the outer shell to minimize their drag. Owls have soft feathers to minimize their noise. Softer is quieter. The idea being, if you don't see the owl approaching, if you don't hear the owl approaching, if you're the target, rather than being in a fight or flight mode trying to escape, you're caught unawares, off guard, ambush, predation. This is what owls do. This is how owls excel. Albert is an imprint of mine. By that I mean I intensively hand-raised him during his infancy. He was hatched in an aviary in Las Vegas, Nevada. When he was 18 days from the egg, he was flown to California. I raised him in my home with my children. Initially, he thought of me as his mother because I was his caregiver during infancy, and that morphed to pair bond over the last 13 years. So in other words, he thinks in his world we are a couple. Late winter, early spring, when he gets hormonal, he'll begin calling to me. I got him to call to me once. We'll see if he'll call to me. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. Give it another month, and he'll be talking his brains out to me. He'll offer me food. He'll dance for me. He'll court me the way that a wild owl would court another wild owl. So the relationship that we have lends itself to him being quite docile and quite tame, which is exactly how I needed him. Don't let this fool you. These talons, I don't know if you can see these in the back, these claws are needle sharp. They're functionally grappling hooks. The strength of the owl lies in the feet. In Europe and Asia, these birds are killing animals as large as fox and roe deer. In North America, the great horned owls that we have here, these are very common. They're in these neighborhoods. You may hear them at night. We call these owls flying tigers for a reason, voracious predatory drive. Everything's potentially on their menu. Things like rabbits and mice and rats, of course, amphibians, reptiles, birds, sure. Peregrine falcons, one of the few predators that can catch them. They don't match their speed, they catch them roosting, they catch them asleep. Cats and small dogs on their radar. Those missing cat posters that show up in your neighborhoods, that is not exclusively the domain of coyotes. Owls do this too. So if you're hearing these owls at night and you've got small pets, you might not want to leave them unattended outside after dark. Otherwise, don't blame the owl if they eat them. Ambush predation. There's another common urban owl in our neighborhoods besides the great horns. These are the barn owls. These are the white ones. Barn owls don't make a hooting noise like you would imagine. They screech like something out of Jurassic Park. The really cool thing about a barn owl, they don't want your cats, they want your rats and your mice and your voles. They're a rodent specializer. That's what they catch. Rats and mice and voles are pretty much their bag. Having them around from a human standpoint, super useful. If you're a farmer, you like rodent suppression. If you live in an urban landscape, you like rodent suppression. If you want to keep the owls in your neighborhood alive, active, healthy, hunting your rats and mice, please don't put out the poison baits. If you poison rats and mice, you are in essence poisoning owl food. And we don't mean to kill owls this way, but that's sometimes what happens. If you kill your rats and your owls with poisons, your rats are going to regenerate much more quickly. You're going to have them back, and your owls aren't going to be around to help you. So you will have sent yourself behind. There's a myriad of other mechanisms, trapping ways that don't involve poisons that would allow your owls to exist and to help you out with your rodent suppression schemes. I want to talk about something a little deeper. I wanted to let you know that in spite of some of the things that predators do, like killing our cats, my wife's cat was coyoted in Brea, that wasn't great. One of my parrots was flown down and killed by a wild hawk. I didn't like that. All of my chickens in Northern California would either get eaten by a hawk or an owl or a bobcat or a raccoon. Sometimes what predators do is not easy to watch. When lions are mauling a wildebeest, that's not always easy to look at. In spite of these things, predators are not just good animals. Predators are what we call requisite. And by requisite, I mean we need predators. We have to have predators. When you hear people talking about the balance of nature, if you exclude what predators do, we call this predation. If you exclude predation from your balance equation, you have no balance. Predators are an important part of our ecology. I'm so glad that I've been here for your science night. Science is a big deal in my life. Science enriches our lives. It helps me better understand the world that surrounds us. I'm a big fan of the science thing, so this has been a lot of fun. Before I forget, I wanted to let you know that in 1972, as I think I mentioned earlier, we banned DDT to prevent the extinction of our bald eagle. That same year, we federally banned hawk shooting in the United States of America. As a result of these two important decisions, Bird of prey populations have rebounded. They are booming and they're urban. I live a few miles that way in Brea. I mean, I could bicycle to my house from here. Within roughly 3 miles of my home, and I've surveyed my neighborhood, I have roughly 60 nesting pairs of hawks, owls, and falcons. This is an excellent time to be a hawk watcher because they're kind of ubiquitous. They're everywhere. If you want to see a hawk tomorrow or the next day or the rest of your life, I can teach you my craft of hawk watching. This is not rocket science. This is what I do when I look for hawks. I do exactly this. I go like this. So the idea being, if you'd like to see a hawk, this is kind of where you need to direct your attention. You don't have to spend all day looking up, but once in a while when you're outdoors, if you remember to keep an eye on what's going on up here, remember when hawks fly, they're in the sky, and when hawks are not flying, they typically don't plant themselves on the ground. They usually perch themselves up high on buildings, in trees, cell towers, silos, billboards, street signs, light poles, power poles, whatever the high thing is in your landscape. The first time you look up and don't see a hawk, don't get discouraged. Just keep in the back of your mind that, hey, he said I'd see a hawk. Keep in the back of your mind that they're here, and eventually you will see one. And when you do, this is worth celebrating. We're doing some things we need to improve upon. For you adults out there, climate change, just so we're clear, isn't a joke or a hoax, and pretending like it isn't happening doesn't make it go away. We're handing off an environment to this generation that isn't the one that we got, and this isn't the one they deserve, but this is the one that we're getting. The sooner we address it, the carbon in our atmosphere, the better the outcome can ultimately be. But in the meantime, just, we need to kind of step up our game on that. When it comes to birds of prey, we've done some great things, which is why they're vibrant, they're urban, they're booming, and they're accessible. Are there any lingering questions before I finally stop talking? Yes?
What are those two feathers above his eyes?
So you might have noticed my parrot, my cockatoo, has a crest. We call it a mohawk sometimes. And when it's up, he's excited. And usually when he's out here and flying around, his crest is up. Down, maybe not so excited. When Albert is happy, these are usually up. These are just feathers. If I do something that he doesn't like, he'll flatten these out. You might be familiar with a house cat. Maybe if you do something that your kitty doesn't like, Fluffy will flatten its ears before it scratches you. Cats will visually cue you. I don't like what you're doing with flattened ears. It's like, oh, don't touch Fluffy. The ears are bad. Albert does this too. If he doesn't like what I'm doing, these go flat, visually cueing me. We call this body language. Yes?
Do owls have any schools? Because I've seen photos or videos where they turn their head almost all the way around. Or their face.
Was the question, do they have skulls?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a skull for sure. What they also have is fixed eyes. Just like a hawk or an eagle or a falcon, their eyes are immobile. So they're compensating with shorter vertebra, the bones in the neck, giving them a 270-degree rotation. So in other words, an owl can stand on a tree limb and can see in all directions without having to articulate to move his body. For me to see directly behind me, I literally have to turn my body because I can't turn my vision will be attracted to motion. When these owls are hunting, they're holding very still on, say, a tree limb. They can hunt in a 360 radius with this head rotation without the body articulation. It's a better means of being invisible. Yes?
Do owls see it straightforward like we do, or do they see
Yeah,
side
yeah,
to side
birds of
like
prey,
that?
straight ahead vision, which is pretty typical of a predator. I know you guys have more questions, and if you want, you can try to catch me when I'm done, but I kind of promised I wouldn't go too long, and I'm about to get the hook for sure. Just for some of you who maybe are interested in animals and wildlife, when I was a little boy, if somebody would have mentioned to me that FYI, if you learn about science, like maybe get a biology degree, you can have a career working with wildlife. Nobody told me that. I ended up finding ways to work with wildlife on my own, but that would have been useful information. Science can open all kinds of doors. Science enriches our lives. Science makes us understand the world around us. So I'm really glad they're promoting science. Thanks for incorporating me, sharing that with me tonight. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and please remember to once in a while watch for birds of prey, and when you see one, celebrate. Thanks so much, you guys.